Well, Peter, you might be the first person on this planet that had ever shut me up for this long. Good old Heraclitus, I tell you, that wild and crazy guy.
If I came to you and I gave you $10,000 for 20% of the company,
deal. Yeah. So, is that a verbal?
Younger than us, sorry to say, Joseph.
What, younger than 20?
Joe, we're just trying to help you because clearly you've lost control of the conversation.
I never, you know what, with all due respect, I never had control of the situation. Doesn't mean I'm gone. What doesn't kill me makes you stronger.
Look at you. You are insane.
How did I do that?
You're insane. You're insane.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Late Night Jaffe. Keep calm and subscribe to my show. Why would you subscribe to the show? You're crazy. You've got to subscribe to the show. It's awesome. We're live on air. It's Wednesday, April 28th. And we've got a show. We've got a show in store for you. Jazza in the houser. And I hope you guys are well, because we got a guy, we got a wild and crazy guy. We got Mr. Bill Guertin, rhymes with 13. He is a sales and motivation expert known as the 800-pound gorilla of peak performance. In my opinion, he looks like about 220, 230, I don't know, 210, but 800 pounds, I don't know. It's got to be in his stature and his status. He's gravitas. Looks like he's drinking an adult beverage in the background. He's my kind of guy. Adam John says, digging the jazz here too. And I'm digging you, Adam John. I'm digging you. Well, let's get into our show. Today is Pay It Forward Day, and it starts with you. Are you paying it forward? Are you spreading the love? Are you helping someone in need? Indeed, I hope you are, because this is a show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing. Well, this week, I've been so amazed. Julie Rose, living the nomad lifestyle, intentionally homeless. Carol Camera, who helped me figure out my LinkedIn presence. And boy, oh boy, do I have a lot of work to do. And then tomorrow night, Brent Menswar will talk about the black sheep. From the freak factor, David Rindle, to the black sheep. But tonight, we focus on Mr. Bill Guertin, and we focus on the Jaffe coin, sitting, just inviting your participation at $1.89, $1.90, call it, struggling to break $2. It needs you. It needs you to buy into the Jaffe economy, become one of the Jaffe holders, one of the regulars, or just be a previous guest, as Bill Guertin will be today. Well, let's do birthdays. Miss Barbara Gore, Ron Belanger, Giandrea Faccini. Ciao, Bella. And on LinkedIn, I see Mr. Scott Pranger, Jeff Epstein/Epstein, and Treveni Irk. Hope you guys are having a great day. Well, now it's time to get into our seated soliloquy. And the seated soliloquy today, can you hear those voices in your head? This is all about self-talk. You know, self-talk is defined as your internal dialogue. It's influenced by your subconscious mind, and it reveals your thoughts, beliefs, questions, and ideas. That sounds pretty scary to me. These days, I'm learning about so many new phrases that honestly, I'd never heard of 6 months ago. Self-talk, imposter syndrome, trauma dumping. So am I better or worse off with this new level of knowledge or awareness? Or perhaps I should say self-awareness? I think the answer is an unequivocal hell yeah. Also, I don't mind whether the dialogue in question is internal or external. I think the most important thing is that it is happening in the first place. So many of us have been brought up to keep things buried, suppressed, or is the correct term repressed? From cowboys don't cry to stiff upper lip. We were built to suck, get up. And that ultimately is built to suck. Showing weakness was never seen as a strength. Showing weakness was seen as a weakness. Burdening others with our problems was just that, a burden. But what about burdening ourselves? Do we practice self-care? Are we forgiving or unrelenting? Are we our best friend or our worst enemy? I've come to learn about the importance of intuition and trusting one's gut. But what if that gut is rotten? What if it's beating us up, dragging us down, or preventing us from moving forward? Perhaps it's a generational thing, and no doubt there's a happy medium between keeping mum and spewing verbal diarrhea in the form of oversharing. But whichever way you look at it, it all begins with number one. It all begins with you, the face in the mirror, the voice or voices in your head. So get comfortable with it or with them, even if they make you feel uncomfortable. It's okay to hold yourself to high standards, even higher standards, but keep them realistic. It's fine to be critical, but not overly so. You had a bad day? Tomorrow will be better. You missed your mark? Tomorrow you'll make contact, maybe even hit it out the park. It's also perfectly fine to be complimentary. Pat yourself on the back, pump out that chest, celebrate the victories, and then get back to work. You can't have an internal dialogue if you don't start one. So open up that dialogue and get used to being a little more selfish in a good way. Take better care of yourself so you can take better care of everyone near and dear around you. They'll thank you for it, but most of all, you'll thank you for it. I must say that this soliloquy felt very personal to me, and I have Bill Guertin to thank for it. So let me introduce the 800-pound gorilla himself. I'll even give you some more music, Bill. Bill Guertin, which is pronounced like 13, is a sales and motivation expert known as the 800-pound gorilla of peak performance. But like everyone else, he's probably up a few pounds after the pandemic. Bill has trained the ticket sales departments of over 100 professional sports teams in the US, Canada, and Mexico. And his dream is to bring his training to sports teams on all 7 continents. And we've had plenty of speakers, plenty of guests on the show that have visited all 7. So I cannot wait to hear about Bill's trip to the Antarctica. When Bill couldn't travel to do his training, he turned his office into a virtual studio because not even a nasty little virus can keep a good man down for too long. Bill serves as Chief Learning Officer for ISBI 360, a virtual sales and training company for executives in sports and entertainment. And here's the important stuff, he plays a mean sing-along piano when he's had a pint or two. I guess the question for you guys is, has he had a pint or two? Let's ask him. Mr. Bill Guertin, welcome to the show.
Sorry, had to get my last pint in. Sorry. Thanks, Joseph. I'm digging your music. I'm entranced by this. It almost sounds like I'm listening to Stardate on the radio. It's awesome.
And what Stardate is it in particular? Stardate 5361.45.
Something like that. It's in the 5th house of Venus and something. I'm not sure.
Well, we just had didn't we have a supermoon, a pink supermoon the other day? So anything can happen.
It was extraordinary. I don't know if you had seen the moon the last day or two, but it really, and our dogs, we have 3 rescue dogs in the house. All of them acted funny with that supermoon. I really think they thought something was going on.
Maybe they thought a gorilla was coming over. You never know.
Perhaps.
So Anna Bowman asks, what is his favorite song to play, sir? What is your favorite? What is your favorite song in the whole world?
You know, I have kind of made a thing of Piano Man only because it's the Billy Joel song that everyone requests. But I really enjoy playing some Queen, because there's some absolutely great licks that Queen had written that are really fun to play. I love Bob Seger, love to play Seger. And REO Speedwagon was a regional band here in Illinois that I don't know if everyone knows, but that's one that I really enjoy too. And so the typically just really good, strong piano music is what I enjoy.
I mean, you just can't fight that feeling anymore. You forgot.
Well, but I'm glad that Kevin Cronin is an international sensation.
You know, my favorite band of all time is Queen. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not.
Of all time, always was, always will be, you know, Freddie Mercury. I mean, you know, I remember actually speaking at a conference in Montreux and running along the lake. I think it's Lake Geneva, and running right into this giant bronze statue of Freddie. You know, the typical Freddie pose. And I didn't realize that. I mean, I should have known this, but he was, you know, a child, an adopted child, if you will, of Montreux. Lived there many years of his life. I think maybe evaded tax there, but who knows? It's a different story for a different
Did not know that, but I would. That's one of those places I'd love to go, because Montreux has been the Jazz Fest and many other great music environments. So
also a house on the lake where Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein.
Wow.
Or is it Frankenstein? I'm not, you know.
Now, who thought that you'd be such an educational program tonight? I mean, you can't get this anywhere, Joseph.
You know, I certainly didn't know that either. But here's what I do know. I know some fun facts about you. For example, I found out that you got to drive a NASCAR race car 160 miles per hour for 30 laps at Texas Motor Speedway for your 40th birthday, which I believe was last year, right?
Oh, yeah, just last year. And you were so kind to put a very trim, fit body in that. I really appreciate that.
So, I mean, what was that like? I mean, you know, I got to tell you, I hate speed. I'm just afraid of it. But, I mean, it must have been just incredible.
It was 160 miles an hour tops, which when you deal with the 25 or 27 degree banking at Texas, feels like it just grips the road like a pancake. You flatten out because the downforce just keeps you on there. So you're able to do things that you wouldn't expect to be able to do with the car. I was a little nervous about going fast, and there's somebody next to you during this thing. He sits in what's called the idiot chair, because there's no protection for this person during this time that you're with them.
The idiot chair.
And so they, it's a 4-speed or 5-speed, I don't remember which, but it's not an automatic transmission. And so I had to get used to that a little bit, because it's been a little while since I'd done that. And then they want to be sure you go fast enough, because some people chicken out. They only go like 120. And so the guy next to me is literally taking his left hand and pushing my knee down on the accelerator to go faster. So it was really exhilarating. The best part was the final 10 laps, we actually got to draft and pass with one other person.
Oh, wow.
And it feels like you just came out of a slingshot. It's amazing.
So now I'm thinking, is there a business or a sales analogy for the idiot chair? What is the idiot chair equivalent in business, in marketing and sales? Putting you on the spot.
Probably sales manager for Enron.
That's basically being a masochist, right? Or just being an entrepreneur. You know, an entrepreneur, you like every day of your life, you sit in the idiot chair.
Yes, here we go. There's no brakes. Yes, I can see that.
So what would the definition be of the idiot chair? It's a chair where it's almost like this idea of living your life without a safety net, but with faith, with good faith, that your co-pilot will steer you safe. How's that for a definition?
I loved it. I'll take that, and maybe we should send that off to Texas Motor Speedway so they can adopt that.
I'm just wondering which of us right now is sitting in the idiot chair. Is my faith put in you, or is your faith put in me, or are we equal idiots?
Well, I believe it is Jaffe Juice TV. I just saying.
It works for me. Well, I want to continue to explore this musical side of you, because you were an on-air radio host on a rock and roll station in the Chicago suburbs at the age of 16. We actually managed to find a never seen before. It makes you look a little bit like South Park, the way the way this has been edited. I mean, when I say edited, I mean this was unaltered, untouched, of course.
That is so great. And actually, that board looks very similar to what we used. It was a 50,000 watt radio station just outside of Chicago. And it was a blowtorch. It went everywhere. And we pulled all our own records for our shows, meaning that we were our own DJs figuring out what it is we wanted to play. So it was like a 5-hour stereo. You could play virtually whatever you wanted. And so it was the best job I ever had.
All right, so I want to stay on this subject of music because, you know, we all know what Kill Bill. We all know what Kill Bill is, but you are more of a stump bill. Tell us a little bit about this your version of Piano Man, your love for piano bars and piano men and 80s intros. Because here's another thing that we have in common, by the way. I live for Beat the Intro, and particularly 80s trivia. It is like I love it. So tell us about this love.
Well, I've been playing piano myself since I was in first grade. I was never big into sports. I enjoyed playing, but I was never very good. My mom sat my butt on the piano and practiced rather than go outside and play ball with my friends. But it actually worked out because I had a pretty good ear. And it was the only game I had with the ladies. So, you know, I wasn't going to be a big star on the sports field. So I could actually work my magic on the keys. And that was my total game with the ladies. That's all I had. But it really worked out pretty well because I all through college and all through my adult life, I've been able to play and have done many, many shows. We had a variety show here in my hometown for over 20 years that we raised over $500,000 for our shelter here for domestic violence. And I get to play at church. I get to play piano bars wherever there's a spare piano in a hotel, and it's fun.
You know, I was just going to make a wise ass crack and say, you know, you spoke about the ladies, and I was going to be, and that's why you're single today. But then look at what you do. You reign and ruin my parade by actually doing something really, really good. Well done. I mean, that's paying it forward. So kudos to you. I mean, it's unbelievable how you've used your amateur skills for good.
Well, thanks. Indeed, it is my amateur skills, and it's. I'm trying to remember if I've ever really been paid for them. I don't think I have. It's just fun and it's a talent. You know, when you have a gift that you enjoy doing, it's not like it's work. It's not like it's anything other than sheer joy.
I could not agree more. I mean, you know, people, even when I think about the show, you know, they call it like, you know, is it a labor of love? I go, no, there's no labor. It's just love. It's just love.
Right.
I mean, there's probably an analogy when we think about the fusion of your world, right? The fusion of your world, your sweet spots, your life force is sports, right? And sports and sales. And, you know, I mean, we all want that, right? We all want to be working for the Yankees or working for an organization that just feeds, you know, we think like every day of our lives, we get to be close to maybe our childhood, you know, a team that we idolized and be able to sell, you know, is it even selling when you're in sales, working for a sports team that everybody loves? It's like a public service. Oh, you want a ticket? Here's a ticket. You want to pay a little bit more for a better ticket? Please. Step up to the stadium, the 800-pound gorilla stadium.
No, there's a lot of selling that goes on. There's not a single team that is anywhere near professional that doesn't have a proactive sales staff banging doors of people and calling them up and suggesting that they buy a season ticket package or a group outing or something that they hadn't considered prior to you calling. And that's what I train people to do. You know, it is a skill that's fairly narrow and well-defined, but it really, what it boils down to is that we don't sell sports in our industry. We sell what happens to people as a result of a sporting event. And that's really what we sell. It isn't the physical ticket. It isn't really even the game on the field or on the court. It's what happens to you in the seat during that time. You get to bond with your parents. You get to hang out with your kids. You get to have fellowship with your church group or whatever you're happening to be.
Oh, I love that. I mean, it's an experience that transcends, right, the functional, you know.
That's right. And
I
many
mean,
people missed it dearly here this last year.
oh, I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. I'll tell you. So just for the record, are you telling me that you're not a fan of you're not a fan of this format? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
What was really fun, how this came about is that those who could not be in their seats wanted a way to represent themselves. And the teams, very few teams who sold these actually made money. They gave the money away to charity or to something else. It was a way to connect their team with fans in a time where they knew that they physically could not connect.
Right.
And so this phenomenon really started, for those who know kind of the history, I believe it started in Korea. With the Korean Baseball League, there were all these pop-up, and there weren't like this in you've got a Philadelphia thing, I think, because that's the Philly Fanatic there in the screen. But in certain places, there were just sporadic here and there, but it really caught on, and in many places, it really was pretty remarkable to see. They'll be showing photos of that for decades to come.
And now we're not completely back to normal, but this is an idea now of what the socially distanced partial crowd feels like, in this case English football. But the thing that's so interesting is and we actually had a discussion months and months ago about this. There really are two interesting constituencies that are influenced and impacted in this environment. One, actually the players on the field. Like what the crowd does to them, energizes them, jazzes them, lifts them up. But the other thing is the people at home. And this was like an epiphany for me, Bill, which is realizing that when you actually go to a game and you're there paying your, for your overpriced popcorn, peanuts, and Cracker Jacks, you're actually doing a service for the people that are watching at home. It was kind of mind-blowing to think about that you are connected, inextricably connected to people all around the world that can't be there, but actually need you to be this vessel for them.
Yeah, it's a much broader, deeper emotional connection than people give it credit. And it's difficult to put in a balance sheet. It's difficult to say how much it's worth. But in terms of the positive psyche value, I think it's enormous. And I think we saw firsthand what sort of damage it might do if it's not there. And I don't think we want to visit that again.
No, I don't think so. But I think what we got to do is, as a little bit of filler, before we get into these voices in my head, these they keep talking to me. They're not saying kill Bill. They're saying tell Bill to give us a little sample or demo of his incredible skills. So would you do us that service or disservice by giving us a little bit of a demo?
Well, I'll allow you to decide which it is, and so I will take my moment to do the technical exchange that I need to do in order to make that happen. And so you can say hi to my gorilla over there.
I see. He looks like an 8-pound gorilla, not an 80-pound gorilla or an 800-pound gorilla.
With a rose and everything, yes.
So we're gonna do a little bit of a demo, are we? Are we gonna play? Is this gonna be a bit of Stump Bill? Is this gonna be a bit of Stump Joe? What's it gonna be?
Well, I believe what we ought to do is that we ought to have a little bit of a. If you have the ability to look for some people there, can you hear me? Okay.
Now we can.
Great. If you want to be able to take requests from people saying, "Hey, I wonder if Bill can play this," we're welcome to do that, or we can do perhaps a number that you know from your 80s past, whatever you might choose to do.
Well, let's see. Does anybody have a request for my esteemed guest today? Oh, we've got Adam says maybe Queen. Cars don't talk back. They're just four-wheeled friends now.
Yeah, if I knew that one well enough, I'd play it. See, that's the problem. If I don't know it well enough, I can't play it. So
what about Queen? Well, Manif is just making this easy. He's saying, Piano Man, you think you can do that?
Well, I can, but I just...
Somebody free us. Somebody, can anybody find me? Somebody to love.
Joseph Jaffe, ladies and gentlemen.
My voice cracked. Normally I can get somebody to. No, I can't. I need more red wine.
I think so. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. In fact, come up with another request, and I'll use my red wine. Go ahead.
All right. So, what about a nice '80s song? What about Aha's "Take on Me"?
I can do that. Let's see, is that? Pretty sure that's the key.
Talking away, I don't know what I'm saying. I'll say it anyway. Today's another day to find you. Shine away. I'll be coming for your love, okay? Take on me. Take me on. I'll be gone. No, I won't give you that note. I won't give you that note. Listen, if you like what if you like what you've seen and heard, please tip Bill, tip me. Go to my Stripe, go to my Cash App, go to my Venmo, go and buy some Jaffe coin. Hell, I'll take gold. I'll take Krugerrand, or I'll just take another beer. Bill, thank you, man. That was awesome. Thank you, Adam. It is well above par falsetto. Normally I can hit those notes, but at 9:28 at night, I struggle. And I'm sitting down as well. But that was fun. Well, thank you guys. Now you know what. And now for something completely different. So, Bill, when you're not driving around a speedway course, when you are not touring all 7 continents, when you are not taking requests, you actually know a thing or two about a thing or two relating to sales, marketing, motivation. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your journey. You've got a podcast. You've trained. I mean, how many sales organizations and have you not worked with? I mean, how many have you worked with? How many would you still like? What's at the top of your list of companies you haven't worked with that you want to?
Well, certainly an English Premier League team would be number 1 on my list. And it can be any one of them, even one, facing relegation. I'd be okay with that too. The challenges that there are for me, of course, now with COVID, may be going away. And so even perhaps in a virtual sense, I hope to be able to get to at least an EPL club, and some of the others within rugby around the world is one of the other things I'd like to do, especially Australia and New Zealand.
Those are my kind of sports, being from South Africa, cricket, rugby, football. That'd be awesome. What have you found are, because your book that you wrote, and you wrote it a while ago. I mean, you wrote it in 2009, I believe.
Yes.
You mean that book?
Oh, sorry. I'll put my props.
You mean that book?
Yeah.
I don't know what book you're talking about.
You are so well prepared, dude.
But I'd love to ask you a couple of questions about that. So first of all, this idea of you've written you wrote a book, right? The 800-pound Gorilla of Sales: How to Dominate Your Market in 2009. Here we are, so many years later, not that many years later, but 11, 12 years later. What has changed? What has stayed the same about effective sales, relationship building, and ultimately dominating your market?
Well, that's a very fair question. And so much has happened in this dozen years or so. Much of it has to do with the digitization of sales. Texting was really a non-issue in 2009 and 2010 and has really become very commonplace in selling. Using social media to the extent that it is today was really unheard of back then. And even then, when people look at that, especially young people bringing up in sales that would like to become a sales professional, looking at those media, you might think that that's where you should put the bulk of your efforts. The same thing that happens in 2009 and 2010 is happening today, and that's relationships matter. And you cannot discount the value of a relationship that takes not necessarily belly to belly, in this case, sometimes Zoom to Zoom or lens to lens, but the ability to look someone in the eye and have them trust you enough to get to know you and vice versa. That has not changed, and that will continue to be important, even if it's not emphasized as much in school or on the sales front in terms of training. That will always be paramount.
I think that's where we met, right? Didn't we meet on a Zoom?
We did. That's exactly right.
And so for me, it was really easy to be able to pick out the thumbnail within the thumbnails. It was very easy to see someone's personality shine through. And, you know, we think that we're buried or lost in a mosaic, if you will, of thumbnails in a Zoom environment, but it's not really true. You really can stand out from the crowd. What are some tips or some techniques to allow you to break through or break free? I'm not going to go into I want to break free. How do you break free, you know, in this Zoom menagerie?
Well, I think much of it has to do with a few fundamentals to start. You and I both have cameras that are eye level, and we're well lit, and we don't look like we're in the witness protection program with lights behind us. And so that we've got, we look professional and we dress the part. I think people that have been working from home believe that it's a license to wear hoodies and pajamas to your sales calls. And the challenge I would have is that you have to be just as professional on Zoom as you would if you were in front of them. And so pay attention to the little things, technical details like lighting and audio, and things behind you that aren't distracting. I've just actually changed some of my stuff. This is not this is real. This is not a green screen. This is my real office. And this is what I've spent quite a bit of time getting right. But you don't have to spend that much time to do it. Just make sure that what you're doing in the background isn't so distracting or so odd that it takes away from your professionalism. So
interesting. By the way, the crowds really do love that response. Yeah, exactly. Raise the roof. Charity is here, and she said, Bill spoke to my youth group virtually and inspired several of them. Well, you're inspiring me now, Bill. Let me tell you. Let's go back to what you said, because we'll look at your background as well. Have you been, by the way, and this is the voice of God. God wants to know. God wants to know. Everything in the background, is it deliberate? Everything's been put there for a reason?
Yep. I wish I could show you the before and after, because I've worked recently with someone who I truly admire and respect. Her name is Carla Gentle, Gentle. She is an image consultant that does specifically these kinds of things to help you improve your Zoom backgrounds. I had a very cluttered background. Up until just a couple of weeks ago, I believed that more books were better. And so I had books everywhere, at piles. And my guess is some of you have probably seen folks like that. And I don't mean to single anybody out here that has that, but I'm sure that there's some good that comes from that. But I had too many books, and it was too cluttered. It was too busy. And so I had Carla work with me to minimize some of the things, to now just have the things that are most important to me and that tell my story best.
I love it. I mean, even if you look at my background, this wasn't always the case. So I was using green screen the whole time. And what I've started to do now, I mean, even if you look very deliberately, you'll see a few things. You'll see Nelson Mandela. You'll see my gift from Seth Godin right there. You'll see the skull. Actually, that's my vaccine card that doesn't come out. what I'm starting to do is be very deliberate as well about a background, and slowly but surely. So, for example, and I mean, if I have a guest on my show and they send me their book, I'll make sure their book is in the background. So having fun, planting little Easter eggs, and realizing that your background actually can be in the foreground, right? In the forefront. A background can be in the forefront in terms of differentiating you.
That is so interesting you say that. Charity, who's on the line right now, actually previewed a couple of the videos I'm doing now for a 21-day challenge from the 7 Voices. And I did an Easter egg kind of thing. I changed one thing on my background for every video that I'm taping, and I'm seeing who the first person is that's going to figure it out.
Oh, nice. And what do they win?
I don't know. It's just a fun idea that I have. It's one of those things you do that you're not quite sure what direction it will take, but you just kind of giggle when you think about it.
So instead of, where's Waldo, it's going to be where's Bildo or Bilbo, Bilbo Baggins. Well, I've got another one, another little reference for you, if you will. I'm going to call it Bill and TEDx's excellent, or Bill and Ted's excellent adventure. Bill and TEDx's adventure. You've just put together a new keynote, and I love the fact, I was like, can I show a snippet of it? And you're like, you don't need to show the snippet. How about I deliver experientially? Look at that. So people are tuning in to find out about the voices in my head, in your head. I'd like to hand it over to you and ask you to just set up this keynote. Why this narrative, this story? Why did you write it? And set it up. And then, if you wouldn't mind, I'll sit back, relax, drink my wine, and be entertained, enthralled, inspired all at one, based on your excellent adventure.
We can do that. Well, it started when I began looking at some of the characteristics of people that were succeeding in my sales classes and some that were not. And I wanted to know what the characteristics were of those that weren't doing so well, because I had trained a lot of people, and it just seemed like sometimes some people would get it and they'd run with it and they'd have a fantastic career. And then others who were equally talented, equally gifted, and showed great promise would kind of fall off the cliff. And so I began looking at ways in which we might be able to look at things a little differently and say, what are those buckets that we could say are existing in people's heads that's preventing them from success? And so what I found were 7 different voices that kept coming up again and again in my research that I think can really help people if they understand the power that they have over them, and if they can quell those negative parts of their voices and tune up the parts that can actually build you up and lift you to success. And it's called the 7 Voices in Your Head. And the things that get in the way I actually call brain invaders. And those are the kinds of things that can get in the way from your success. And so I want to be sure that I have the right connection here, because there is some cool audio that goes along with this. So let's make sure that that connection exists.
Otherwise, you know that I can do voices as well.
Yes, I think that's right. We know that you can do falsetto and all sorts of things.
I can, I'm not as good as Mr. Scott Monty, but I have a Borat, I have a Nelson Mandela, which you will not hear tonight. I think I've embarrassed myself enough. I'm not as good as Mr. Scott Monty. Just to make
sure that we have the audio that I need.
I have
there we go.
Nelson Mandela,
you heard that, right?
Which you will not hear tonight. I think I've embarrassed myself enough. I'm not as good as Mr. Scott Monty.
Just to make sure that we have the audio that I need.
I have
there we go.
Nelson Mandela.
You heard that, right?
I'm hearing weird things.
Yes, so am I.
I'm not.
It's almost like a delay for what's going on. Okay. Well, we're going to do this tonight without the audio portions, and I'm just going to narrate it for you.
You want to try it now? Try it one more time. See if it's
okay.
It's better.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a 7-second delay that was going on. This tonight without the audio portions. What happens. I'm just going to narrate it for you.
You want to try it now? Try it one more time. See if it's
okay.
It's better.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a 7-second delay that was going on. This tonight without the audio portions. What happens. I'm just going to. I don't know what's happening there.
You know what? Life gives us lemons, and then we slip on them and break our neck. That is all right.
Well, let's talk a little. I'm going to talk a little bit about
the sound. Let me hear your sound.
Well, we can do that. the first voice that we have is the voice of comparison. And if that were on the screen, you would actually see that. Indeed, what the hardest thing we have is that we're trying to compare ourselves to one another. We'll do this on the highway when we're looking at cars next to us on the road. We'll look at ourselves and the yards that we have, and our kids and the grades that they each get. I mean, it's crazy. We're even looking at our screens in Zoom and seeing the backgrounds. And we were just talking about that just a little bit ago. Most of the people that are doing this are looking at things in a different way than they should, because they're always looking at them to be better. The voice of comparison is sometimes known as the terrible twos. And that would be known something like, I'm too short, I'm too thin, I'm too something, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I don't have the right set of credentials. There's something wrong with me. She's getting married next year, and it's her second wedding, and I haven't even been married at all. He's got a full head of hair and I don't. There's all kinds of these comparisons that we make throughout our lives. And that's a real problem. There's a lot of salespeople that I work with that have this element in their office. Called the hustle board. And the hustle board is something that is there to compare one another so that the sales department can know who's doing well and who's not. And so you see the list of people there on the left. And then on the right are all the different club seats and reserved seats and things that they are tasked to sell throughout the week. Now, for most people who get a job in sales, this is really cool because you want to see how well you're doing. They're very competitive and they want to win. But that's not how everybody's wired. In fact, some people on your show right now are freaking out even thinking about having their name on that hustle board because that's not how they're wired. But we want to be able to address this voice of comparison in a way that's positive. And in that way, there are three things that I suggest people can do to address it positively. And the first one is to choose what I call mini milestones, or M&Ms for short, to actually do something in a small way so that you feel as though you're making progress toward the goal, so the goal doesn't seem so daunting. Joseph, I don't know, are you a distance runner by any chance?
I mean, this is what I wanted. I was. I mean, I've run 2 New York marathons, so let's say yes.
Okay, that's an absolute yes, in my opinion. I mean, my running is from here to the mailbox. So I really admire what you do and do it well. But when you started training for the marathon, you didn't run 26 miles the first day, right?
I definitely did not. I might have driven it, but
just to see how long it might take to train. But that's the thing. If you train and you want to do a little bit first and then gradually build up to that, create mini milestones, hit a 5-mile mark and then a 10-mile mark and so on until you reach that. So many people get very disappointed and frustrated with themselves if they don't reach their goal right away. And mini milestones can help a great deal. And so if you're going to start running, just start with a mile or two. If you're going to start an exercise routine, start out with something that's 10 or 15 minutes. So you want to be able to do that in stages. The second part of this is be a secret seeker. Who's doing what you want to do that knows something that you don't that might help you get an edge that they also have? There's a show that's here in the States that's very popular. It happens to be in Texas. And this is Chip and Joanna Gaines. They're well known as the show on Fixer Upper. Some folks worldwide may not be familiar with them, but there are similar shows throughout the world. This is a group a husband and wife team that does a lot of remodeling, fixing up homes and making them really look special. And they're well known for putting really interesting materials in place in homes. But when they're putting it in place, they don't do it with duct tape and Bondo and horrible materials behind it. They're really putting quality materials behind it so that it lasts. So it may have a weathered look to it, but the secret that they may have is behind what's being shown. And so those kinds of secrets are what you want to do if you want that kind of result that Chip and Joanna might have in the homes that they do and that you might look at as well. What are those secrets that you want to know about what it is you want to provide? You may not have to know everything, but maybe just a little tidbit or two about what makes them special can really be helpful. And then number 3 is to get real. Get real about what can really be possible versus what you think is possible. My wife has a thing for Brian Urlacher of the Chicago Bears, okay? It's no secret. We have a big poster up down in our den downstairs, and she really enjoyed watching him play football for the Bears. He's retired recently, and, she just finds him attractive. Now, she doesn't find him as attractive with his new hair, which is a good thing because I think Mrs. Urlacher likes him better than Mrs. Guertine now. But if I tried to look like this, I'd be in serious trouble. And so I have to find some other secret to be able to be more appealing to my wife without knocking myself out to look like this. And so what I've done, I've found that she has a very sensitive nose. And so I wear colognes that particularly appeal to her because I'm not going to look like this. But the cologne actually, it tends to work every now and then, if you know what I mean. So it's all good.
And we're back to your, that's your secret, I guess. That's the Bill Guertin secret. It's the singing, and it's the smelling. It's two senses, right? It's the voice and the sense of smell. And you don't even have to get yourself into trouble with respect to touch. So that's good. Bill,
so these are the three things.
Bill, if I had to look at the three, they really do speak quite well to this idea of quelling or managing the voice of comparison, which is obviously comparing now yourself against yourself, but being realistic. I love the fact, right? As I said, even in my soliloquy, which is it's okay to have high standards, maybe even higher standards, but be realistic. The mini milestones, another fantastic lesson or insight. Small size bite. But I really love the secret seeker. The secret seeker to me is a unique insight. It's not something that I've heard before. And I guess the point is, let's even bring it back to today's day. It's National Pay It Forward Day.
Mm-hmm.
It's being able to almost extract that secret from someone else. Can I assume that they willingly will give up that secret? Or do you have to like work hard to find that secret? There's something really interesting about that.
That's a great question. And I think it depends on which secrets you're actually looking for. I think some are fairly obvious. If you're a baker and you want to know the secret ingredient, you may wish to look in the recipe that they've used, and that might be an easy way to do that. In other instances, it may be a skill or a technique that may take days, months, or years to perfect. And so when you find it, it may or may not help you get where you need to go. But indeed, you've got one more piece to the puzzle that you don't have to have 100% together in order to try to achieve at least a portion of the success that you're comparing yourself to others in those cases. And it will help you with that voice in your head that says, I'm not them, but I can be like them or more like them in these ways.
There's a really powerful idea. I'm not them, but I can be like them. Be like Mike, right? Or in this case, be like LeBron.
Indeed.
So it's a puzzle piece that allows you to at least be on a journey, an aspirational journey to emulate someone that you admire or that you benchmark yourself against without being them. It's a nuance, but it's a very powerful one.
Indeed. And I hope that others who are watching today can really see the power of this and say, how can I put that to work in the things that I'm struggling with right now? That you don't have to be who you're comparing yourself to. Just compare yourself in smaller ways and in ways that are measurable and attainable for you.
I found this quote today to share with us, which is, be very careful what you say to yourself because someone very important is listening. You.
That's great.
And
Love
that was and that was said by John Assaraf, lecturer, entrepreneur, author, and behavior expert.
John Assaraf is a good dude. The one that I used on the very end of my program is right here. It's a Peter Dunoff quote. You're jealous because you're unaware that everything you need is inside you.
I love that.
Very similar quote.
It turns out that there's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. I think we have time for one more voice, maybe two.
Sure. Not a problem.
And then, we are going to do a little after show today in Twitter Spaces. So that's awesome. You've never done one before. So we're going to go and hang out on Twitter afterwards for 30 minutes or so. So yeah, give us another voice.
I will absolutely do that. This is the voice of regret. I'm sure you've met regret many, many times. For those who have been in situations where, let's see, you've seen this at one time or another. I should have bought that stock 3 weeks ago, but you didn't. I should have read the directions on the box, but you didn't. I shouldn't have bought that Halloween costume on eBay and actually worn it, but you did. There are these things that we do or don't do that really have a difficult time getting out of our heads and messing with us. The interesting thing about regret, there has been many, many studies over the last 20 years about regret. And this is a composite of those last studies from the last 20 years. And what it shows is that worldwide, what we regret most starts with, if you go to number 5, we regret some things about ourselves, perhaps our weight, the way we look. Parenting comes in at number 4, the way we raised our children. Maybe we worked too much and we're regretting that. Romance, I should have asked her out. I can't believe I didn't ask her before, or ask him before he asked somebody else. Career regrets about going for that promotion or going for that type of job on the ladder. And then the number 1, 32% of people regret their education most. I should have stayed in school. I should have gotten my higher degree, or whatever that might mean for you. And what it really says, if you look past the data, what we really look at are 2 things that I think are really important for us to realize. First is that overall, people are most regretful about things that can still be changed or something can be done about them. And the second thing is this: the more often that a regret shows up, the greater the chance seems to be for positive action to make it right. So what that means essentially is that, we've got all kinds of things that we're regretful about, but most of them still have an opportunity to be changed. And if it shows up a whole lot, it's probably something that you can make better. And that's what we talk about with regard to moving forward with regret. Because what ends up happening with regret is you're looking in the rearview mirror the whole time, and we all know what happens when you look in the rearview mirror too often. And so the 3 elements that I suggest with regard to regret.
Before you tell us that, Charity says, shoulding is my motto. So there you go. I couldn't agree more. And by the way, before you get into the solutions for the voice of regret, don't ever say this about your life: I should have bought Jaffe coin. Just go to rally.io/creator/Jaffe. Get yourself some Jaffe coin while stock's lost. How about that? Was that a nice subtle little?
Loved it. Love the tie-in. I'll have to find a way to put that in each of my presentations, and we'll talk about the sponsorship rights for that here when we're done. So that's awesome.
All right. So now let's get into the 3 solutions to the voice of regret.
You bet. So number 1 is to let the balloon go. And it's difficult to put into words and to make sound any more or complicated than what it really is. But if you can imagine whatever it is that you have as this shiny red Mylar balloon, or whatever you'd like to have, something that will release and go straight up into the air. And along with it goes that thing that you did or didn't do. It can be a very cathartic moment for you that you let it go and allow yourself then that peace that comes from letting something go like that. Number 2 is to actually fail forward, as John Maxwell is famous for saying. If you look at the way in which you do things, what did we learn from what happened? And how can it make us better or smarter, or maybe even more likely not to do it again? Maxwell says it this way: if you're not failing, you're probably not really moving forward. And certainly sales reps fail all the time. And the very best reps are the ones that fail more often so that they can figure out how to succeed more quickly. And then the third thing, this is something that might not be expected for many of the viewers tonight, is that if something happened, if you did something that you're regretting that caused some pain to someone, I'd like you to consider being a fixer. And by being a fixer, what I mean is that healing can often come from making something right again. Don't put it off, because you'll even regret that too. Is there somebody you need to talk to? Pick up the phone and take that first step. Put your ego away and make it right. Even when we're done here today on this broadcast, text that person, apologize to who was affected. Put it behind you, let them know you're thinking of them, and then find the time to get together. So those are the 3 things that I suggest that you do to be able to quell the voice of regret. Let the balloon go, fail forward, and be a fixer.
Love it. And let me see your beautiful face again.
Absolutely.
So I really love that idea because the essence of the voice of regret can be summed up with, it's not too late. It's never too late. And it's such a powerful, it's something that has governed my life over the last year, right? One of my, I know I'm quoting myself, which is the voice of narcissism, but it's this idea that, if I knew then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have done it. And so I turned that on its head and I flipped it on its head and I said, if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have started it a year sooner. It's all relative. And the fact is, if you think you're too late, well, can you imagine what you would think in a year's time? Or can you imagine what people in a year's time would be thinking now, looking at you being 1 year ahead, of them? And so I think the voice of regret, when we think about negative self-talk and we think about all those, as I spoke about imposter syndrome, what we realize is the real imposter is actually not even real. The imposter is an illusion. Ultimately, when we put our heads down, when we think of those mini milestones, when we let the balloon go, we realize that, as I said, that the power was in us all along.
Indeed. And not to dwell on any one voice, but I think if you don't mind, I will quickly go through all 7 because I'm sure people will ask, well, what are the other 5? If that's all right, I have just a single slide for each one of those.
I tell you what, I think that would be a swell idea. Go through those 5 voices, and then in Twitter Spaces afterwards, maybe we can go in a couple more, in more detail.
Happy to do that. Well, comparison we've already talked about, and that was the first that we had, and certainly regret we've just dealt with. The third one is inadequacy, and it has everything to do with what you were just talking about, Joseph, that imposter syndrome. It's realizing that we're all in the same boat and nobody has all the answers, especially when COVID hit. Nobody had all the answers, and that's really when imposter syndrome hit record highs in terms of percentages who were suffering from it. The next is genetics. Thinking that you were born with everything you're ever going to have and that there's no other way around that. That it really does, your destiny is far stronger than your DNA. It's the way in which you approach life and the way in which you're moving forward that really determines things, not who you are and how you were born. Failure is the 5th, and that's knowing that success really depends on all this trial and error we've been talking about, trying and failing and gaining knowledge each time you do. The 6th is guilt, recognizing that breaking the cycle of guilt, which really has more to do with postponing action, can really be extremely debilitating, and that action is really the only way to stop the endless spiral that goes on. And then the last one, maybe the toughest to talk about, is heartbreak, and knowing that we can choose to heal and bravely go forward when we have things that happen to us that are debilitating, such as the loss of a loved one, a job, a marriage, or a relationship that goes south, or anything else that can be extremely painful.
I was just letting the silence soak us in, soak all over us. I thought of those voices, and just like they are the 7 deadly sins. These are the 7, just unproductive voices. These are voices that are maybe here to test us or challenge us. But with your keynote, with your skills, we can silence them, we can manage them, we can mitigate them, or maybe we can even push off against them, and use them and turn the negative into a positive. This has been a little bit of a Bill and TEDx masterclass from Mr. Bill Guertin, sales and motivation expert, known as I'm going to rename you the 8,000-pound gorilla of peak performance. You have not peaked yet, my friend.
Well,
You're
that's
just getting started.
I'll take those 7,200 pounds and say thank you.
You can connect with Bill on LinkedIn. You can find out more about him at the800poundgorilla.com. You can follow him on Twitter, and you better, because we're about to go to Twitter Spaces and pick your voice, pick your poison, because Bill will answer your questions. You can follow him on Instagram at Bill Guertin, at Bill Guertin, at Bill Guertin. Book him live or virtually for a 7 Voices keynote presentation for online conferences and virtual meetings. Just go to the7voices.com and the audio will definitely work, by the way. It has to, right? It's only, I mean, I love it when people push. It's fantastic. You push it to the limit. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And book Bill as your virtual MC because he has a full multi-camera studio. There we go. How about that? And finally, last but not least, buy the 800-pound gorilla of sales, how to dominate your market. Bill Guertin, this has been the best show ever. You know?
Yes, that's what we were looking for.
And that's what you got. I'm going to make sure that there are no records of me singing karaoke, singing Billy-oke. But now it's time to go to Twitter Spaces. I hope you enjoyed tonight. I hope that 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is better than going back to Netflix or looking at that depressing news on your local cable news network or Foxy, network, etc. Just rather focus on Bill and Joe. We are the new Bill and Ted. Mr. Guertin, let's head over to the after show. But before we do,
you are Chuck Norris approved.
There you go. I'll see you guys tomorrow with Mr. Brant Menswar. Take care, everyone.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.